All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the December episode of Wright Virtual Visits. My name is Eric Rogers, and I'm the manager of events and communications here at the Frank Lloyd Wright Building Conservancy. It's my pleasure to welcome everyone to this episode. I, as always, want to thank the people that make it possible for us to do this every month. In particular, my collaborator, Anna Kaplan, the executive director of the Grey Cliff Conservancy, who's working behind the scenes to monitor all of your comments and questions on Facebook, as well as the team at Forever Ready Productions, in particular, Allison Wong, who is helping us out today. And Forever Ready has a little video they'd like to play, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
You know that feeling you get when something inspires you?
The kind of feeling that inspires you to act?
That's where we come in.
We tell mission-focused stories tailored to your goals.
Our collaborative, efficient, and service-oriented creativity simplifies all your video needs. Relationships, not clients.
Stories, not content.
Forever Ready Productions.
Just a huge amount of appreciation for the work that Forever Ready has done for us on Wright Virtual Visits this year. There's no way that we would have pulled off all of these without their help. So thanks so much to them, and definitely look them up if you've got video production needs. So I'm excited today that we are going to be visiting Frank Lloyd Wright's Burnham block in Milwaukee, and we are going to be shown around by Mike Lillick, who is the president and the curator for the Burnham block. Mike, can I get you to join me on screen?
Sure. Hi, Eric.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. Looks like you've got a good sunny day there.
It's a bright sunny day in Milwaukee today.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad we don't have you out traipsing around in a snowstorm or anything like that. We took our chances and got lucky.
Come back tomorrow.
But yeah, I think I'll let you take it from here. I think you're going to tell us a little bit about the Burnham block, and then you've got some exciting news to share with us.
I do. So the Frank Lloyd Wright Burnham block is a nonprofit 501c3 organization that has a mission that has three parts, really. We're here to preserve, educate, and inspire people. If I can have slide 4, please. Next one. There you go. So the Burnham block itself, back one more, Allison. The Burnham block itself consists of 6 homes designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. They were built here in between 1915 and 1916. They're part of a series of homes that Frank Lloyd Wright called the American System-Built homes. And in this picture, you see one of the single-family homes and 4 of the duplexes. Allison, if you can advance one slide, please. And this is a site map of the site. So reading from right to left, 2 single families, the red boxes, 4 duplexes, they're identical on the Burnham block. It's the largest collection of residential houses of Frank Lloyd Wright's anywhere in the world. And if we can move on to the next slide, Allison. The second part of our mission is to educate. And so we regularly welcome groups from 4th graders all the way up through adult learners. The 4th graders come here to learn about local history and thinking creatively and design. High school kids, a lot of STEM programs come through and measure and do all kinds of fun things in the house. College students think of it as a classroom and literally for one semester use the site as a classroom. And the adult learners come all the time just to absorb and absorb and absorb. Next slide, please. And we're also here to inspire people. A lot of thinking around Frank Lloyd Wright and how he's still impactful today and how he can make a difference in our lives. So thinking about how to shelter people in a beautiful home or a beautiful space. We greet somewhere short of 5,000 visitors per year at the Burnham Block, and they come for our regular tour program. They come in bus groups off of cruise ships. That's right, we have cruise ships in Milwaukee. And they come in events, different events that happen throughout the year, group tours and so on. If we can advance to the next slide. So a little bit about the American System Built Homes. The American System Built Homes were a collaboration actually between a developer from Milwaukee, Wisconsin by the name of Arthur Richards and the architect Frank Lloyd Wright. Frank Lloyd Wright was responsible for the designs of the different models that make up the American System Built Home series. Arthur Richards was responsible for almost everything else. Richards was responsible for, among other things, creating marketing materials, recruiting a sales channel or dealers who would sell the homes to you, and also to fulfill orders. So when an order came in, it was up to Richards to find the materials, package them together, and send them off to your to the site that you had purchased or the lot that you had purchased to build your home. If we can move on to the next slide. The advertising or marketing was done in various ways. This is an example. This was a full-page newspaper advertisement in the Chicago Tribune in 1917. So imagine opening up your newspaper and seeing a banner headline, "You can own an American home," and some text about what it might be like to live in one of these homes. And really the most important thing in this context is across the bottom, all the builders or dealers who would construct them for you. Allison, if you could advance, please. If you went to the builder or dealer's office, as the advertisement was enticing you to do, you would see a series of drawings laid out in the sales area, I suppose, that would illustrate all of the different models that were available of the American System Built homes. Allison, if you could advance. This is an example of one of the models. This is the Model C3. We have a Model C3 here in Milwaukee on the Burnham Block. We'll get to that in a few minutes. And this is an exterior rendering. If this was something you'd be interested in, you might look at the interior of the home. Allison, if you'd advance. So here you have an isometric drawing of the interior of the home with the home laid out with furniture installed or furniture in place and carpets and so on, all the accoutrements of living. And Allison, if you'd advance. And you might also see a rendering of what the interior of the home might look like. This rendering is also of the Model C3. And Allison, if you'd advance one more. You'd have all kinds of design decisions to make on the American System Built homes. So after choosing the basic model, this drawing would help you to choose a roof line or a roof style. So the floor plan in the lower right-hand corner fits all three of the roof styles: a flat roof, a hip roof, or a gable roof. So even though Frank Lloyd Wright had drawn over 966 drawings for this project and spent a ton of time on creating a whole series of models, the client, you as the client, were still sitting down making design decisions on things like how the roof would look. And basically major structural changes could be made to the house. You could decide, for example, whether the porch was built on the front of the house or the back of the house. You could decide whether you had the 2-bedroom version, the 3-bedroom, or the 4-bedroom version. You could decide things like the art glass pattern that you would have on your home. There are all kinds of design decisions that you could make. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you are probably going to end up with your own unique, almost customized American System Built home designed by the architect Frank Lloyd Wright. Allison, if you can go one more. When you had made all of the decisions on how your home would be configured, all of your decisions would be put together on a bill of sale, for example. And in this case, you can see, I cannot see how much the house would cost. So this is the Model C3. It looks like about a $1,900 cost for the kit of materials. And then you had a whole bunch of things that you'd add on, things like plumbing and the opening the foundation, masonry, and so on. So you'd buy the kit of materials, or you'd order the kit of materials from the Richards Company in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They would pre-cut all the lumber, assembled the things like the plaster, the stucco, windows, door frames, um, electrical fixtures, plumbing fixtures, and so on. All of that would come in the kit, and you still had a few more things to purchase on site and with your builder. But at the end of the day, you were constructing your own unique Frank Lloyd Wright house someplace in the world. The intent was to put this package on a railroad car and ship the railroad car to the siding closest to where you had purchased your lot. So Allison, we're done with the slides for now. And I'm gonna switch over. Let's see. Okay, so now next we're going to take a walk down the Burnham block. So here we're looking at the back side of the 4 two-family homes. What you're seeing on the back is some porches. Those are sleeping porches. In 1916, it was thought healthy to sleep outside. Wright accommodated that public health concern. Tuberculosis was still a thing. And the deal was if you slept outside, or the thinking was if you could sleep outside, you might be able to avoid tuberculosis. So it was common for people to pull mattresses out, beds and so on, and sleep outside. And even the coldest months, if they possibly could, Frank Lloyd Wright had accommodated that in this particular design. So Allison, if you can take me to slide 18 just briefly. Oh, 18, back 2. So this is the slide that you're seeing is one of the duplexes. They're named 2-flat Model C. And this is a before that you're seeing. And Allison, if you can give me the live shot, this is the after. Oop, next, I'm sorry, go back to live, please. And this is the live shot. So this home was restored in 2013 and 2014. We were lucky enough to receive a Save America's Treasures grant to do this restoration. It took from August of 2013 to April of 2014. And the exterior is done. We still have work to do on the inside, but this is the second of our restoration projects. Now we're going to move down the block a little bit. The next house is awaiting restoration. It's currently empty. It's got a pretty checkered past to it, and we acquired it in 2000, actually 2019. And this house is the 3rd duplex. It's got aluminum siding on it. We're quite proud of it. I say that tongue in cheek. It's the only aluminum sided Frank Lloyd Wright house that I know of in the world. It's obviously not supposed to have that. That's the bad news. The good news is it's part of the reason we have a historic preservation ordinance in the city of Milwaukee. And this is the 4th and final duplex on our tour today. This house is available for rent on VRBO. Wonderful neighbors. This is one of the homes. This is the only home we don't own on the block. So the Frank Lloyd Wright Burnham Block organization now owns 5 of the 6 homes. And as we prepare them all for full restoration, this is one house that we hope to acquire soon. We've got great neighbors. We love them. They're fantastic. And at some point when they're ready to sell, I'm sure we'll be able to acquire this home. This was restored, sort of. It's an adaptive reuse. Some great friends and former owners worked on this about 35 years ago. And it's, when I say adaptive reuse, the interior is converted from a 2-family to a single family, but very, very well done. Very much in the style of Frank Lloyd Wright. They're very sensitive to Wright. In fact, it's difficult to see, but they actually created the art glass windows using Wright's design or pattern by hand, meticulously over an extended period of time. And then the next house is the Model B1 of the American System Built Homes. We restored this house in 2008, 2009. It took 13 months to complete the restoration. At one point, the house was wrapped with a fence in a bubble. The original stucco had asbestos in it and needed to be taken off the house. We also at the time, we took the time to remediate the lead paint and so on. But the restoration was completed then in September of 2009. It's an award-winning restoration. And this is by far, I think, unless somebody corrects me, the smallest Frank Lloyd Wright house ever built. It's 805 square feet, and we'll take a walk through it just right now. Actually, we'll finish in that house. No, we'll take a walk through. Hey, Allison, can you give me slide 20? So back to. So some befores and afters. This is the Model B1 before restoration. You'll notice that if you're going to, and if Allison, if we can go back to live, you'll notice that in the 1930, in the before restoration, there was a porch that was added to the front of the house, and it was added in 1939, and it kind of obliterated Frank Lloyd Wright's design for the house. It made it practically impossible to tell what was going on, and it's the picture that you often see in a lot of the guidebooks. Storer, for example, has the old picture before the restoration. In 2008, 2009, when we restored this house, we were able to take off the 1939 edition, which had nothing to do with Frank Lloyd Wright, and we were able to open up again and show you the actual home itself as it would have existed in 1916. And let's take a quick walk through. Allison, while I'm walking into the house, well, actually, just let's hang on here for a second. This is a breakfast nook or eating area in the kitchen. Now, it's probably good to know that what we're doing here today barely does this justice. And I think really when you're trying to experience architecture, and really any architecture, being there and feeling the space and getting a sense of the space is by far the best way to go. So I apologize that we can't do better with the camera and remote systems, but it's just a challenge to all of you to come and visit the site. You really need to come and be in the space. Probably one of the most interesting comments that I hear, and I hear this at least 60% of the time from guests, is the expression, "I could live here." And that is amazing to me because for the most part, at 805 square feet, this house is smaller than many people's garage. So the "I could live here" comment is really almost flattering, but it's a true testament to what Wright was trying to create. So to give you a little bit of context, the homes on the Burnham block were put here or constructed here when Wright had already designed over 130 homes. And almost all of those homes were for people who could afford just about anything they wanted. This was Frank Lloyd Wright's first and broadest gesture to a really wide audience. These were meant to be created more than one time. So it wasn't a classic meet with the architect in his office, sit down and and work out your program. These are actually meant to be built many times. You had a lot of decision making along the way, but at the end of the day, this was Wright trying to reach a really, 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 really wide audience. The relationship that Wright had with Richards was documented in a contract, and that contract indicated that these two guys had some really big visions for this project. They intended to go across the United States and put American system-built homes in every city, village, and town. Then they were going to go to Canada, Mexico, and across the Atlantic Ocean. This was a really big vision to shelter as many people as they could in a beautiful space. There's some things about the home that make them really totally unique. For example, the construction is different. It's way beyond standard construction techniques. It's Frank Lloyd Wright experimenting and trying new things. We think after looking at what Wright did, that the engineering on it was spectacular and actually would have made for a solid, really good, well-built house. They were not meant to be inexpensive necessarily, although they were meant to be very affordable. So what Wright was trying to do is figure out, how can I change the way we build houses so that we could make them more available to a wider audience? Almost like Henry Ford, who would be a contemporary, thinking, how can we build cars better? And all of a sudden you have the Model T and then the rest of the Ford product and line, and pretty soon everybody can afford a car, as opposed to just being something for very wealthy people. So Allison, if you can give me slide 22 and then 23. So again, we're going back to the interior. This is what the living room of this Model B1 looked like before. And if you can give me the next slide. And this is what it looks like today. A little bit better picture than I was able to give you walking through. And then Allison, if you can move all the way to slide, well, just go to slide 24. So again, this is the Burnham block, but this is looking at it from the east, and in the foreground to the right is the Model C3 of the American System-Built Homes. We're going to talk about that. So this slide just gives us some context of where we are. And then if you can go to slide 25, the Model C3, we'll talk about this in a second, and then rest on slide 26. So, kind of to wrap up today's virtual visit, let's announce something really cool and something that has been in the works now for more than a year. We're going to announce today, well, not really, we're going to sneak peek you today, I suppose. The official announcement with press and so on will come in January. But today we want to tell you about an American Home campaign, which is to restore the Model C3 on the Burnham block. So the American Home campaign will launch next month. It's going to be a restoration of the Model C3, and it's going to be projected that we'll start the restoration sometime late next year. We have early commitments. First of all, we received a grant from the National Park Service's Save America's Treasures Fund. It's a matching grant, so anytime somebody gives us $1, it makes $2. It means $2 for restoration. We've got some major funding already in place. The Barbara Meyer Elsner Foundation. Barbara Meyer Elsner, if you don't recognize the name, is the owner of the Frank Lloyd Wright Boathouse, which just recently sold. So Barbara had owned that house for over 70 years. The Hirschfeld Foundation in Milwaukee is a generous donor. The Frank Lloyd Wright Burnham Block Board of Directors, and our friends Betty Story, and we've got quite a few donations along the way that have been contributed. The names will be published eventually, but most of our fundraising so far has been focused on foundations and so on. At this point, we're at about 79% fundraised, so this project will happen. Allison, if you can take us back to live. Oops, yep, here we go. So the Model C3 today, just two things to point out, and we're kind of going around the front. We're on a very busy street. This will have a high visibility. hopefully someday we can get rid of this bus shelter and make it pretty. We have some designs to put a Frank Lloyd Wright style plate on here that'll describe the houses and their significance. The Model C3, as you can kind of tell, I suppose, has a coral stone finish right now. That was added in 1959. That will come off and it'll be stucco at some point. You can see up on the roof, it's got a red shingled roof. That's actually a steel shingle. In the 1970s, the women who lived here thought they lived in an important house designed by an important architect and they should have a special roof. So they asked their roofing contractor to find the Pizza Hut shingle, and lo and behold, the roofing contractor actually did. So the red shingle steel junky roof up on top of the house right now is actually the Pizza Hut shingle. Going back over to the front of the house. There's supposed to be an intricate trellis system and a planter. The planter that's here is not the original planter. That has to come off and be rebuilt. But this thing that juts out here is very interesting. This is actually supposed to be an open porch. So during the restoration, we'll be taking out all these windows and reopening this. So I hope to invite all of you up to visit us to have a Spotted Cow or Miller High Life beer on the porch, enjoying the traffic as it passes by on a typical day in Milwaukee. Let's see. Allison, if you can go to the second last slide, which would be 27. Oops, one previous. So this is a 1924 era photograph of this house with the open porch. Actually, I'll go back and get the other angle. But this is the house as we intend to restore it. So we put our 1916 goggles on and we say, what would this house have looked like? We follow standards promulgated by the U.S. Department of Interior and the National Park Service for restoring homes. And so it's a standards-based restoration. It's fully documented. Our favorite expression is bag it and tag it. We have a significant archive of stuff related to the American system-built homes. And Allison, if you can just take me back live. So this is the same angle of the house that we're looking at. And so I think we'll conclude there. And Allison, for the last slide, if you can give me the website. And so the last slide is number 29. Yep, thank you. Oh, Allison is just marvelous at doing this. And thank you so much, Allison. And Eric, off to you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Mike. I think this was great to get an overview of the Burnham block. I've never actually had the opportunity to walk down it myself, so a treat to see it on such a glorious day, and amazing to see the strides that y'all have made in restoring so many of the houses. We do have some questions that have come in. I'm going to try to sprint through them quickly because I know we're kind of bumping up on time. We may run a couple minutes over. I'll let you get situated, Mike. The first couple of questions that I wanted to ask are actually about the American Systems Built House system. And maybe I'll just give you all of these and you can kind of take a quick pass at it. So the questions were, how were the promotional materials disseminated? And how many different known models of ASBHs were there?
So two great questions. I think the dissemination, from what we can tell, and I don't really have a great answer on that. I think the dissemination happened primarily through the builders or dealers. And so you'd go to visit them in the office and you'd see the materials. There aren't many sets of the marketing materials available. There's a set at MoMA, the Wisconsin Historical Society, and I think Chicago Historical Society has a set, and probably a few others scattered around, but there aren't many sets of them. It wasn't widely distributed. The second question, how many models? We usually say between 20 and 30. I think because of the configuration options that you had, some of the models might be a suggestion. The C3, for example, is a hip roof home. The last digit told you whether it was a flat, a hip, or a gable roof home. But you very easily could find a C3 with a flat roof and not recognize them as the same house. So we say between 20 and 30 models of the American system built homes. And I think that is just awaiting a final set of research. Somebody needs to spend time at Columbia going through all the drawings and trying to narrow down the number of actual models that were made. Sorry for the long answer.
No, that's perfect. Little bit of a question about the neighborhood context. Can you talk about what was in the area at the time that these were being developed? And also, is there an interesting story behind the fact that there are so many of these on one block?
Yeah, so the context, kind of classic Frank Lloyd Wright, I suppose, although I don't believe, it's not our understanding that Frank Lloyd Wright had anything to do with choosing the site. It was the edge of town, however. You could go 4 blocks in the westerly direction and be in a farm field. So this was a place where people were building new homes in 1916. Why are there 6 on the same block? Remember the character Arthur Richards that we started with? Arthur Richards was responsible for the logistics and fulfilling orders when people ordered an American system built home. And they had grand visions. They were going to build thousands of these things all over the place. Richards bought 3 lots on Burnham Street, on West Burnham Street in Milwaukee, and constructed 6 homes on the lot. So they weren't originally constructed for actual clients. They were constructed for Richards, and they weren't technically used as models either. There's no indication that they were ever advertised, and I poured through the newspapers looking for that sort of thing. I think they were prototypes, and they were just Richards saying, look, we're going to start cranking out hundreds and then thousands of these things. We better figure out how the process is going to work. So I think what we have is an accident of business, which is that 6 houses were constructed here because Richards needed to sort of exercise the process. That's a little bit of speculation, but it's a pretty good educated guess based on the research I've done so far.
So you've done an amazing job with the restoration. Is the block on either a local landmark registry or on the National Register?
Yes, we're on the National Register of Historic Places, the State Register of Historic Places, and the 6 homes on the block comprise a historic district in the city of Milwaukee. So never again could you aluminum side one of the buildings.
And somebody specifically asked about that aluminum siding. Are you planning to remove it?
Very much so, but I guess the way to think about it is the aluminum siding is protecting the house somewhat. It's like a shell around the house. So it's actually, instead of our highest priority, it's actually our lowest.
Uh-oh, we seem to have lost Mike. Well, I'm not sure where Mike went. Maybe having a connection issue. Well, we'll see if he pops back in here shortly, but I think obviously we're really excited to see that the Burnham block is embarking on a capital campaign to restore the house at the end of the block. You know, somebody asked about what the future restoration goals are. So I definitely encourage everyone to support that effort. They'll be going live with the fundraising for that over the coming month or so. So if you want to support their fundraising effort, or if you want to learn more about visiting, you can go to their website, which Allison has helpfully brought back up here on the screen, which is www.wrightinmilwaukee.org. And I know that they're a very popular tour stop during an event that I encourage people to check out in Milwaukee every year, which is Doors Open Milwaukee, that happens in September. But they offer tours at other times of year as well. So I'm sorry that we don't have Mike here to send off, but I want to thank everyone for attending today. Encourage you to support your Frank Lloyd Wright public sites as you're traveling, or if you live near one, make sure to join, make sure to donate, make sure to visit. There's no substitute for seeing them in person, although of course it is really a treat to be able to highlight these to a global audience online through Wright Virtual Visits. Speaking of Wright Virtual Visits, you may notice that we don't have a calendar announced yet for next year. We do plan to continue this project in some way, so be on the lookout for notice through our Facebook page, or of course, you can always come back and check the webpage for the project on the Conservancy's website, which you can find at savewright.org/WVV. We'll announce what's going to happen next with Wright Virtual Visits there just as soon as we figure it out. So I want to thank everybody again for tuning in. Thank Allison and Anna for helping do so much over the last year to make these happen, and all the sites that have participated, and wish everybody a very happy holidays, and we will see you in the new year. Thanks so much.